Good morning, everyone. Good morning, all of APUA. We had implemented a task force here at APUA to cover the global crisis of the COVID-19. And the reality about APUA and it being unique is that we have about 800 employees. And with social distancing being the new norm, we were unable to meet with every employee face to face, although we would have tried to send out as much information as possible. We felt that this way was the new and speak to employees about best practices, how to combat the COVID-19. And our general manager is also here to offer a message to the staff. Mr. Martin?
Thank you, and good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Special good morning to Dr. Knight is not here yet, but Ms. Mannix and Ms. Gardner. Thank you very much for coming. I know this is a very busy time for you, and for you to have a lot of time for us. We really appreciate that. So welcome and thanks a lot. Welcome our staff as well. This is a very critical time, and we're here today to speak about the pandemic, because the WHO declared the pandemic about 7 days ago. That's the coronavirus, COVID-19. This is a very, very serious matter. This is going to redefine the entire world order, economically, socially, professionally. There's no question about it. I remember being with some friends about 3 weeks ago, and they were saying, hey, what are you worried about? What are you worried about? This is like a flu. This is not like any flu. A normal flu does not tank Wall Street, stock market. This is something different. This is unprecedented. So I'm just imploring all of us to really take it seriously and not take it lightly. As far as APUA is concerned, we decided about 3 weeks ago to establish a task force so that we can get the message out to our staff, and not only that, so that we can implement measures to combat this deadly virus. So we appointed Olson, our health and safety officer, to lead this task force, and I think we have a complement of around 8 people. Rodney, you serve it, well, Rodney Gardner is that our HR manager, and so we have really taken some serious steps. As I said, about 3 weeks ago, to make sure that we adhere to some newly established protocols. When you're coming into APUA now, no matter who you are, you have to be sanitized before you come through. That's one of the steps that we've taken. We also advocating and practicing social distancing. That's very important too. But we're not going to realize the results we want unless all of us adhere to the protocols that would have been established. And not only we're not going to realize success either if we don't advocate and so a personal responsibility. Me being safe signals that I care about everybody around me, and I'm going to do everything in my power to do what I can to make sure that I adhere to the established protocols. So I'm really beseeching all of us to ensure that we do that, because if we do this, we'll be able to combat this thing together. As I said before, this is not business as usual. We have had several meetings with at the management level just to address this. As a matter of fact, we had a management meeting on Monday that where managers were supposed to submit their monthly reports, and we said forget that. The most important thing here today that's confronting us is COVID-19. So we have given it the significance that it deserves, and we are committed to do whatever it takes to ensure that you guys are safe once you come through the doors, not only you, but our customers as well. That's very important. We all have, as I said earlier, we all have a role to play, and we all have to ensure that we play that role consistently, not just some of the time, but all the time. This is like total quality management, where you do it right the first time, consistently all the time. And this is how we're going to do it. I want to just take this opportunity to just wish everybody a safe process, a safe journey, because I mean, from my understanding, we only have one case thus far in Antigua. I mean, let's continue to ask God for his guidance, and because really he's the steward, and he's going to guide us through this. And we are going to have to hold on to his coattail. And those of us who know him well, and I think we all do, we're going to grab on daily with both hands. That's very, very important. But practically, I mean, there's a common sense, it's a common sense issue that requires wisdom. And we have to really utilize that wisdom consistently going forward to ensure that we do everything within our power to protect ourselves and those around us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Martin. Thank you.
So I can go now?
So far we have two representatives with us. We have Miss Julienne Mannix. She's from the Central Board of Health. Did I pronounce the name correctly? Julienne, and my apologies. And we have Miss Gardner. Miss Gardner is a nutritionist. Yes.
Public health nutritionist.
Public health nutritionist. So Ms. Mannix is going to make a presentation, followed by Ms. Gardner. We are expecting Dr. Knight to join us. And during the presentation, you're free to ask questions. We've also extended our text board, so staff who are watching us live, they will also have an opportunity to send questions to the panelists. All right? Ms. Mannix? Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. So I'll just be making mention of a few prevention and control measures, that we can use to protect ourselves and others, because we're trying to reduce the spread of the disease. There's all good, persons, we're going out, we're buying the Lysol spray, we're buying up our hand sanitizer. If we're not going to change some of our cultural practices, it's going to defeat the whole purpose. So like, for example, if you ask persons, when you feel a sneeze coming on, how do you typically sneeze? Persons, you will sneeze in your hands, and as you walk, you rub it inside of your clothing, and you're touching different surfaces, you're shaking person's hand. And when you want to cough, you're putting your hand in a fist and you're coughing inside of your fist, and then you're doing the same thing, and we continue with our daily work. But that is a means of transmission, because if you're gonna sneeze and cough just out in the open, and you sneeze and cough in front of a surface, you can land on that surface, or the people are coming about, they're touching the different surfaces, and that is how, the virus can spread. So we just asking, persons to change those common practice. So we can move from the sneezing in the open, in our hands, in our fists, and you can sneeze or cough in a flexed elbow. Some persons are not comfortable with that method. You can use inside of your clothing, and you can sneeze and cough there. Because what you're trying to do is to prevent the droplets from getting out. So you're keeping them to you. But if, some of your workers maybe have a, young child, a baby, you're breastfeeding, I want to use this method, you're coughing and sneezing in your clothing. Because remember, you have to breastfeed, so they want to choose that method. So we can use our single-use tissue. So when you finish sneezing, what we're going to do with this tissue, we're supposed to throw it in the bin. So we need to change our practice that, you're still holding the tissue in your hand and you're waiting for that second sneeze to come along, and then you're going to sneeze in that same tissue and you hold it in your hand, or sometimes you might put it in your pocket. Can you pass that for me? And the other person is, touching that, you're resting your hand on the surface. Or some persons, we're not using the tissue, so we have a rag and you have a cola and you blow your nose in the cola, and then what do we do after? We fold it. And then you wait for that second and you blow again, and then we fold it. And we're still holding that rag in our hand. Then you're looking for a clean side, so you open out again, and you start over the process, and then you blow again, and then we're gonna fold it, and we're still holding this in our hand. We're touching the door handle, you're touching the keyboard, you're touching your telephone. So you want persons, to do with this, you're gonna use your single-use tissue. When you finish with it, you dispose of it in a bin. Because not all the times you're being within close proximity of the bin. You can have a small bag inside of your work bag, ladies. And when you finish, you're blowing your nose, You want to put it in your small bag. We don't want persons to be littering. And then when you get to a bin, you can dispose of it. But some persons are with the notion that if you're going to use a tissue, you don't have to wash your hands. But you must wash your hands after. When you sneeze, you can still get droplets on your hands. So you still don't want to be, you have the droplets and you're still touching surfaces. So you must wash your hands after, which I will demonstrate for you. This is a practical thing that we're working with here. So let's run around. So at your hand washing station, we want you to have liquid soap. You're not using bar soap. Bar soap can carry germs, and the bar soap, you don't want everybody in the office. You said you have about, well, it's 800 in total, but not everybody. Maybe you maybe have 100 here. You don't want 100 persons here using a bar soap. So, it's important for the procurement officer for APUA to ensure that you have ample supply of liquid soap. You don't want to be telling persons to wash their hands. When they get to the restroom, there's no liquid soap for you to wash your hands. You have your single-use tissue. Not everybody drying their hands in the same towel. We have our running water because APUA is supplying us with our running water. And then we have our bin because you don't want to be walking around with the tissue after you finish drying your hands and you walk into different places. You can't find a bin and you just litter. So we're using our liquid soap, put enough. Then I'm going to wet my hand because I want the soap, to lather. I'm gonna make sure I wash in the center of my hand. I want to get between my fingers. I want to get to the back of my hands. I want to get underneath of my fingernail. I had a little accident at the bathroom. Something went underneath my fingernail that shouldn't be there. So removing that also. I decided to use this method for me to cough and sneeze in my flex elbow. So I'm going to come all the way up to my elbows and in my hand washing process. I'm going to wash my fingertips for both hands. And then I'm going to choose this method of using the soap and I'm going to wash the tap. Remember, you're not the only person that is using the tap at your workplace. You don't know if the person who used the tap before you decided they're going to rinse the hand and not wash the hand and you have a dirty tap. Then I'm going to wash my hands in the same process. So I'm going to, rinse the tap. Use my single-use tissue to dry my hands. Some persons are not comfortable in washing the tap. You don't have to. While you're rinsing the hands, your hands and the water is still running. You can use you dry your hands first, so you're not going to be wasting the tissue. You take the tissue, you turn off the tap. And then remember, you have to go through the door. Your door have on germ. So what are we going to do? You can use the same tissue. Open the door. We use our foot just to catch the door, and then we drop the tissue in the bin, and then we move on. But it shouldn't be just a one-off situation that, you wash your hand this morning all grand, you did your good hand washing practice, and then you don't wash your hand again. So you're just going to be utilizing hand sanitizer throughout the day. The hand sanitizer should not replace hand washing. Hand washing should be your first option. And your second best option is using the hand sanitizer. Ladies, we walk around, we have our liquor packet, a little bottle, and we just do a little scoop, and we think that, all is well. But you want to make sure that, you use enough to lather, because you're trying to remove whatever germs that may be on your hands. It's not a, little scoop, and not because now with this going scale, you're going to just use a little pinch inside of your hands because you're trying to get the hand sanitizer, to lather. I recommend that, you can buy the one that is 70% alcohol based. You should look at the label before you purchase with your hand sanitizer. And the hand sanitizers also work in place of, you don't have access right away to running water. You're traveling, you're on the bus, you're touching different surfaces. So naturally, there's no running water there. So that is where, hand sanitizer will come into play. But when you get home or you get to your workplace, you must wash your hands. So the emphasis is on hand washing. And in terms of, in your office space, and if I ask somebody in the audience here, how do you use your How you use your Lysol spray? Where do you spray? You spray it on the surface. What about you? You spray on the napkin. Where do you spray this? In the air. And a lot of persons will tell you that answer that they spray it in the air. This is not supposed to be sprayed just like that in the atmosphere. Or if one of your coworker happen to sneeze or cough, and soon as they leave, behind it, we have a person that's guilty of doing that, but you're just wasting the expensive, scarce product. This is supposed to be sprayed on surfaces only. So, in the office, you're not the only person that is using the telephone, you're sharing your telephone, you spray it on this surface. You run out of staples in your staple machine, so you borrow your co-worker staple machine, touching different surfaces, you spray it here. Same thing for your keyboard. You're not the only person that is using the keyboard. So, you spray that surface. You think about other frequently touched surfaces that you can have inside of your workplace. So like, your door handle, so you can spray that. Coming upstairs, you have 3 flights that we had to use the handrail. You have handrails coming upstairs. So, if you want to, you spray or you're cleaning, you're disinfecting your handrail. Or your chairs, your table, but not for you to just walk into the room and then you're just gonna spray this inside of, the atmosphere. And you also need to be, mindful of persons, because this is a disinfectant. So you have to be mindful that, person with that is asthmatic, this can trigger that person if you have, the sinus ailment. So you can't just come into a room and then you spray it, because you have to think about your co-workers. So if, you have that type of ailment, you can use something else. You can use the wipes. You can use the Clorox wipes and do the same, purpose, and not just spray this in the atmosphere. So, these are just some of the things that, you can do to help reduce. So it doesn't make sense, you just keep scooting, the hand sanitizer, and we're not washing our hands. We're not going to cover a cough, so we need to focus on that. So you're trying to, and not just out in the atmosphere. Thank you.
Thank you.
Miss Mannix, in the absence of Lysol, what else do you recommend to clean surfaces?
They have different type of, we have I'm not sure if they have another spray. There's another spray that you can use. So, because it doesn't have to be with a spray. You can use a wipe, or you can also use a solution. You can use a Clorox solution. Because like for general cleaning, if you're going to apply a cleaner that is going to clean the desks and the rails, you really want to use, the Lysol spray, you can use a Clorox solution with your cleaning cloth, and you can clean those surfaces. Peroxide also is one. Vinegar is also a disinfectant that you can use. Alcohol is also one that you can use.
Okay, and on our stream, one of our employees is asking that now has that hand sanitizer as scarce. What do you recommend?
You can
as a
use your
substitute?
rubbing alcohol only, not mixing your rubbing alcohol with different things. For your hand sanitizer, you can use our regular rubbing alcohol, because that is 70% isopropyl. You can use that.
You can use the drinking one too, because they have 95 proof.
If you want to utilize your drinking alcohol,
Absolute vodka.
So you can use what's left.
but they still have rubbing alcohol on the shelf, so that is cheaper than for you to go buy.
But if you have vodka at home, you can use the vodka
You choose.
in your hands.
Yeah,
Because
we're not advocating for that. but
The
it is-
distillery produces 95% alcohol, and that can be broken down to 70%. The hospital lab can do that. When that discussion was raised with the schools, they said that it could be done as a chemistry project in the school labs, those schools that have labs. They were concerned that, you have the students working in the alcohol. And
They might take
sniff.
it.
I don't think there's a problem is sniff. Maybe if it was spliff, but they have a problem.
Do you have any questions? And this is for Ms. Mannix.
I realized in your presentation, when you use the open the pipe, after you wash your hands, you wipe it up. What about the hand soap that you press?
Because remember, you're touching the hand soap, but you're going to wash your hands.
Right, but what
So-
about the other person coming in to use that same
But they're going to wash their hands, because that's the only reason why you're touching you can still wash the cover, but remember you're washing your hands. That is why you're touching, the surf. You're not just coming in to just touch the soap for no reason. So the ladder for you, the process that you're going through is going to kill whatever germs that is present on your hands.
No. Okay. I'm going to the bathroom. I'm going to use the bathroom.
Yes.
I don't want to do what I have.
Mhm.
When I finish, I'm going to press the hand soap and I'm going to wash my hands.
Mhm.
I'm going to wash off the top for
Yeah.
the pipe. But what happened to the other person who's going to come in, use the bathroom, and go and press that same hand soap?
Wash your hands.
After the fact.
You want to be washing
Understand?
your hands.
Whatever it is.
You don't press after you wash. You're pressing, you're not gonna press after you wash your hands. You're pressing to wash your hands.
I thought that was a German folk.
The gentleman in the blue hat on. Oh, sorry.
I have a question. You mentioned that the lifestyle has to be on. The alcohol has to be on 70%.
Yes, 70%.
In terms of the hand soap, do we have a special hand soap that we have to buy? Anyone can work?
Just any soap is good.
That
Now,
is
once it gets the lather you're trying to get from it. So
So
any
you
soap
can get some with 62% alcohol in it.
Well, they have,
Yes, I actually have one.
and they have
In
some
soap.
antimicrobial soaps and all that.
The regular ladder.
The important thing, you see, the lather allows for the easy removal of any foreign body on your hand that can harbor germs. That's the important.
So can the hand soap be used to wipe surfaces in the absence of lifestyle and alcohol?
If you absolutely had nothing else, it's better than not wiping.
I get the impression that you're looking for the cheapest route. But I mean, don't encourage that.
Actually, the cheapest, that would be the dearest, because I think the soap would be more expensive than using the alcohol.
As a frontline employee who handles a lot of cash, what tip would you give someone like myself who probably cannot get up as often to wash my hands? How effective is the hand sanitizer? And are there any dangers of using too much hand sanitizer?
So like in your situation, you can put a time into it. Because naturally, if you're touching money, you must wash your hands. But if you're gonna have it's on a high traffic day, you can say that after you're dealing with every customer, you will sanitize your hand. But after every 5 customer, I'm going to wash my hands. You can leave your station and wash your hands. But now, if you sit there and you go through this entire process and you just eliminate the hand washing process. So you can sanitize your hand between, but then after you can put the time in, if you want to say every 15 minutes, I'm gonna get up from my station and go and wash my hands. But in the meantime, since you know that you did not wash your hands, you need to avoid men. You understand what I mean by avoiding men? So you will need to avoid touching your mouth, your eyes, and your nose, because these are the entry points, for the virus. And if you did not avoid men, do not
Men
touch.
are vulnerable.
So do not touch these areas because these are, as I said, as the entry points. So you try to avoid touching your eyes, your mouth, and nose. And persons, you see persons walking around and they're wearing their gloves.
Like hands.
Like the hand, and they're still touching different surfaces. So they're still not mindful of it. And you're still spreading because you're wearing your gloves and then you're wearing glasses and you're still touching. And you may decide that you want to wear a mask and you're touching this area of the mask because we're not accustomed to wearing a mask. So you have on your mask and ever so often you're gonna pull it up or pull it down because you need to get a fresher breath, fresh air, and then you're pulling it up and you keep touching this area. And it's the same gloves that you're wearing that you're touching the table, the doorknob and everything, and you're touching money and you keep touching these areas and you're just making it even more easy for you to be, infected. So it's hand washing. So you can say, as I said before, ever so often you get up from your desk, your station, and you go and wash your hands and just try avoid touching your face.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We have another question on our YouTube feed. Someone is asking if you can specify some of the mixtures that we should not do when we're trying to make our homemade disinfectants.
No mixture at all. This is general, no mixture at all. We're not advocating for any mixture. Your hand sanitizer only. You're rubbing alcohol only. You're doing your cleaning. Your Clorox only, not your Clorox and ammonia. So it's either Clorox only or ammonia only. So no mixing of any chemicals. You're just producing a stronger chemical that can be dangerous for you.
I have a question. Is there any benefit in buying antibacterial soap?
No, because remember, this is a virus. So
Okay.
it's not really,
Because I hear people talking.
Yes,
No,
it's
no,
a-
no, no, so,
no,
okay, so
no, it's not. Agent one,
Antimicrobial.
microbial,
we're
okay.
not bacteria.
Yeah, you demonstrated that if you're going to sneeze, one of the options you have is to sneeze into your shirt. Let's say you're infected. We were told that the virus can survive on surfaces up to 9 hours. Let's say you go home and you decide as a precaution, you're going to take off your clothes and put them in to wash. My thing is, can the virus survive the washing process, or if maybe I maybe discipline or something to the wash, will that kill the virus? Or when I taking them out, I still exposing myself to the virus after the wash cycle is finished?
Contaminate, yourself by that. But if you go directly, you take that off and put it in the wash, and you wash your hands after taking it off, then that's okay. Washing would take care of the virus. Any soap, some things like, I don't want to advertise any brand, those type of things like discipline and so on. You can use those in laundry too, and that would help.
Thank you. We'd like to welcome Dr. Knight to the panel.
Thank you very much.
And then we'd like to hear from Ms. Gardner on the information that she'd like to share with us.
Okay, good day, everyone. As it's already been established, we are speaking about the coronavirus and how we can help ourselves, our families, our communities in combating this serious condition. We do know that there is no treatment for the virus. However, the symptoms have been treated, and hence there are different things that you can do as a person to help in minimizing those symptoms. And one of those treatments is proper diet. And that's where I will come in. Apart from proper rest and sleep, exercise, we are encouraged to practice a healthy diet as part of our lifestyle practices. And it gives us an opportunity, Dr. Knight, to promote our food-based dietary guidelines. For many persons who may not be used to our food-based dietary guidelines, those are some health practices that we would have established in 2013. It was launched, whereby we have 8 dietary guidelines in helping us to eat a healthy meal. And some of the guidelines are eating a variety of foods each day, increasing our fruits intake, increasing our vegetables intake, reducing our salt and salty snacks, reducing our sugar and sugary drinks, and so it's healthy lifestyle practices, so physical activities and so forth. So this condition brings to front our food-based dietary guidelines. Now, for the treatment of some of the symptoms, which would be like flu-like symptoms, we are encouraged to increase or to boost our immune system. What can I eat? What can I drink to help boost my immune system? Because if we are infected with a condition or a virus, our immune system is our frontline fighter. And hence, if the immune system is strong and healthy, it gives us a better chance to survive. So we talk about eating our healthy meals, our vitamins, our minerals, And one of our main vitamin we promote is vitamin C. But we also have to take in consideration our vitamin E, our vitamin D, and some of our folates and so forth.
Multivitamin.
Our multivitamin would cover it. What I don't want, Dr. Knight, is that persons rushing out to get that high doses of vitamin C,
Yes.
right? And they are utilizing monies that can be diverted to something else. Because vitamin C is a soluble vitamin, when our bodies reaches its quota, which is not too high, 65 to 75 milligrams per day, all the other vitamin C that we would have consumed goes out in our urine. So actually what we are having is expensive urine. And not really, it's not benefiting us. So yes, we do need our vitamin C, but we don't have to be, and I'm seeing vitamin persons taking 2,000 and 3,000 milligrams of vitamin C, because they will drink one in a package with 1,000, then they take another one, and it's calculated almost 3,000 milligrams of vitamin C per day when our bodies do not really need it.
And you see, if you buy a decent multivitamin, it's in vitamins, right? And so when you're looking for in usual practice, I mean, not just like in this case of an outbreak, I have to advise people all the time, because people come to you and the marketers, people who want to sell things,
They take
come
advantage
and they
of
say,
it.
I get this thing, boy, they say vitamin D. They say good. They think that is a good tonic. And somebody else come with vitamin E. And they end up buying a load of different things, for a lot of money. And all they need is something that says multivitamins and minerals. That is the A to Z, as they say. Vitamin A, right down to zinc. You have your vitamins and your minerals. That covers everything. Now, there are times when there are problems involving the nerve of any kind, when you want some people to have a little extra boost of the B complex, or a few more grams of the C, but not a whole load of it, because there's such a thing as vitamin toxicity. That is, you poison yourself.
Right.
So when people say, boy, I had a stressful week, I didn't sleep or I think I had, so I double up on the vitamin.
Yeah.
All they're doing is doubling up on the money and injuring themselves, because your kidneys and your liver are now on the extra strain to eliminate what is now a toxin to the body. Right? Too much of something good. So that's one thing. So look for multiple vitamins and minerals. That's what you use. And don't double up because you think, there's some crisis.
Yeah, and thanks, Dr. Knight. And our first line also is proper diet. So if you eat properly, there would not be a need for those multivitamins.
Unless you're all like me.
and you're not eating properly, right? But eating properly, for instance, an orange, if you would eat an orange, let's say a regular orange, that about 15 milligrams of vitamin C already, just that one orange. So if you would have had an orange and then you have another fruit, and our West Indian cherry is our highest value of vitamin C. So if you had a handful of our local cherries, that's over 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C,
and
because it's packed with vitamin C.
And the pomegranates in your yard are not ornaments.
Yes, they are rich with that vitamin C and vitamin A, which is an antioxidant that will help to, that helps to fight the infection.
As you say, if you, for instance, a staple for me is banana, and I have pomegranate. That's often this morning I had banana, I had guava. They're in my yard.
Guava too is another vitamin C.
But when you go to the supermarket and you pick up these little watery things like the apples and these imported things, if we would only market in the same way our guavas and so on.
Our
We would
guavas.
be doing wonderfully. Even dumps when they're in season, and you have
Yes.
big dumps now.
Mhm.
Wonderful
And sweet
source
too.
of vitamins. So if you can eat, a fruit or two in the morning, and you eat some vegetables during the day and so on, you have really taken care of much of the
Vitamins and
the
minerals.
necessity of, the needed vitamins and so on. But of course, the reality is that for economic reasons, some people are not able to do that because we don't produce those foods in Antigua in any, great amount and all that, and they can be expensive. And so people might be eating a lot of rice and a lot of macaroni and the rest of it, and some cheap chicken and so forth, and put two things on the side to say, well, I had vegetables, right? So in those circumstances, you do need to supplement, right? You do need to supplement.
Let me just piggyback on what you said, that in connection with people buying food, and especially with this outbreak, buying of salad is not recommended. There's green salads because people speak, they cough, and those are not cooked. Droplets here, there, and everywhere.
Coleslaw at Kentucky, KFC.
Right. Those. Well, we don't want to call any names, but you want to really avoid the purchasing of food at this time because your risk of contracting those infections is higher. Okay, it's a practice. I don't eat green salad when I go out. Cooked, I may tolerate, but green salad, you're opening yourself to a lot of those.
And don't slice up my food for me. Don't peel my banana.
Exactly. You don't want that, right? Yes. So what we do want to encourage is a variety of fruits and vegetables and foods on a whole, so that you can be able to pick up your minerals and your vitamins, which will help to boost your immune system, that will be able to fight any virus or any infection.
So I'm gonna have my turn, so you make full use of yours.
I'll get some back from you.
Any questions?
Yes, Ms. Gardner. I noticed that you left out dairy, right? Now, I'm not a fan of dairy because of the mucus producing properties of dairy. Canada has removed it from their healthy food pyramid altogether. The US, they're having a debate at the moment concerning that, right? I know during cold and flu season, you're encouraged not to use milk, cheese, the whole dairy thing because of the mucus it produces, right? So at this time now where we have the COVID-19 virus, which affects the lungs, right? Do you think that you recommend that we should cut out the dairy altogether?
Okay, dairy foods are one of our main source of calcium. So for persons who are in the growing stage, especially you have your teenagers growing, where they are laying down the foundation for skeleton growth, you don't want to pull back your dairy foods in a large way because it will affect that person, especially when the person becomes an adult. Although you have other sources where you can get calcium, however, dairy foods are one of our main source of calcium. Now, if you are having the challenge of a flu or a cold, yes, you may want to take the precaution or put other methods in place. But for a population to just pull back, I don't see it happening.
Well, if you were to say that, when they're down to the Chinese people who had the health store down on Reckless Street, you go in there and you get a good natural source of calcium that's easily absorbable by the body. Because, seashells and all that other things, calcium, and you get that, So we have got hooked on milk more. Part of it is commercial.
And cheese.
Because I can remember in the early 1990s, and one of the early times that I spent in the US for a while. And there was the health conscious people, speaking about well, the fact that it was unnecessary for people to use dairy and the harm that it could do. And so dairy, the industry went down. And the US government came to the rescue of the dairy producers. You were on the bus and the subway, or the big billboards and the TV, and see Spike Lee and them with the white thing in the mustache saying, "Got milk?" It was a massive multi-million-dollar investment by the government in advertising milk, just to help the 1% to make some millions again. So this is how we suffer from the corporate greed in the US all the time. That was a massive promotion. They got all the black stars and everybody to put a little white thing on the face and say, "Got milk?" A big boost, and that pushed the consumption of dairy again. It became necessary, and all that time, naturopathic people and my friend Teddy Manuel got roasted by the medical profession in Antigua for saying don't drink milk. And the thing is, people say milk is produced for the young. For the young. The female human being has milk also for the baby. The cow has milk for the calf. And when the calf grows up, it doesn't drink any more milk. And the only creature that voluntarily drinks the milk of another is the human being. We may take some cow's milk and give it to cats. We may take some cow's milk and give it to puppies. They don't go looking for it. We're the only set of people who seek milk from another creature to drink into our adulthood, because it is meant for infancy, and that's it. I might have had it full 2 years because they didn't have anything else to give me, so I had plenty of breast milk.
So as a substitute, would you recommend the use of like almond milk instead?
Almond milk is not a high source of calcium, neither of protein. So it is not, as I said, the dairy will be our richest source. We get dairy from our green vegetables and so green leafy vegetables and so forth. You spoke about the supplements and so forth, but we do not advocate. That is not our first line to ask persons, especially when in your growing years, to be using supplement as your calcium, your source of calcium.
And it's not highly absorbable.
Right.
Most of that supplementary calcium. You would see the almond milk, which I drink. I know it's not milk. It's just an almond drink. And I drink that because it gives they also use it with the cereals, the oats and what's not, instead of using dairy. But the thing is, they would put with extra calcium and all that, but much of that calcium is not easily absorbable. So you would have to seek, in the health stores, etc., where they have health food shops, some readily absorbable source of calcium. But so some people tell you still that for their children, as you say, young people, they still encourage them to drink some yogurt and eat a bit of cheese and that sort of thing. But but as I said, if you are consuming a lot of the plants that contain these things, you don't have to worry. And so cultures differ.
Varieties.
You see, cultures differ. There are people in societies that may not be consuming all that milk, but they're eating a lot of the plant-based foods that contain the calcium.
Okay, so Ms. Gardner, just in wrap it up, just to reinforce as to basically the reason why you are here, just for the pleasure of those who are here and those who are streaming, how our diet and exercise, how it goes hand in hand in combating this virus. So if you can just stress enough to them about the healthy habits and exercise and why it is that you're here.
Okay. We do know for the condition of the coronavirus, the many deaths that occur persons would have had underlying health conditions. Most of them are hypertensive, diabetic, or some other chronic conditions. And hence, our diet plays an important role in the management of those conditions. So if you do have those conditions and they are under control, it gives you a better chance of fighting or combating these conditions. And what I'm saying, for a healthy diet or proper diet, we need to have a variety of foods. We want to increase our fruits and vegetables, reach those fruits and vegetables. They contain a high source of our vitamins and minerals, and those will boost our immune system, making us stronger to fight our coming tiger.
The bottom line, in health generally, the immune system is so important. When you see people have longevity just in the immune system, that's good. Whether they're lucky because they inherited it, and having been lucky, they themselves conducted themselves in a way. But there's some people who get such a good immune system that they can do almost anything and they still live pretty long. When they go to them with the mic and say, how come you live till you're 100? They start to invent things they never thought of. Oh, me cover my head from the Jew. Me eat dumpling. All sort of foolishness. They're just lucky, right? But the point is they have a good immune system. And that is key to having good health. Good immune system.
We have a question from someone, and then we'll move on to you,
Miss Gardner, the diet. I have 2 girls, right? And every day I give them the fruits. I give them a balance. I try to give them a balanced meal. Since this disease come around, everybody going, oh, boost up this system, give them vitamins. Do I really have to give them vitamins? Because they eat their fruits and local fruits. Whatever is in season, I try to give them, and it's something that they love. Do I have to go and buy vitamins for them?
It's case by case, but definitely I would say, based on what you would have said, no, they do not need additional vitamins. And as I explained before, with the soluble vitamins, it goes out in your urine. So yes, you'll be buying supplements, but they would not be benefiting per se from it. So ensure that they have their fruits and their vegetables. Mind you, apple is one of the common foods, but it's not very high in vitamin C.
Nothing.
Okay, you get some good fiber, so it helps you with the bathroom.
But it doesn't keep the doctor away.
Yeah, that's for constipation, so that's for the gastrointestinal.
You probably have some apples that make the doctor have to come.
Right, but for the vitamin C, as I said, the guava, the pomegranates, your lemons, right? Those are foods that you want to capitalize on.
Not the lemons around right now.
No, yeah, not all.
You squeeze even half of a good size lemon in some warm water in the morning, like in your tea, and you're gone clear.
Yes, and which brings me to the point that with our vitamin C foods, you do not want to boil, because heat destroys vitamin C. So yes, you have your guava and you have your cherries, but you don't want to boil them to make the drink, because in that way you are killing your vitamin C and it will not be benefiting. All right.
With that lemon, you say the local one, the yellow one.
The yellow one.
Those are the
Yes.
the good ones.
Yes.
And not the local ones.
But you know what? It's a citrus fruit, so you're still getting some vitamin C, of course, in it. But when we talk about the lemon, again, American, when we talk about the lemon, we are referring to the yellow one. Yes.
But because a lot of people have what they call in Trinidad some sweet orange, sour orange. I mean, some people say sweet lemon. That but they're not as strong. Like some girl came the other day and said she wants the ugly lemon.
The ugly lemon.
Nice.
Yes.
Those are good.
Yes. Right. Yes.
Thank you. We'd like to hear from Dr. Knight. Dr. Knight, if you could just tell us exactly what is COVID-19, some of the symptoms, how can we differentiate from it versus a regular flu? And just again, to reiterate the steps, if we feel as if we have a headache, should we call the COVID-19? If you could just speak to us about that.
Okay, now let me just say something in a kind of a structured manner. We're speaking about a disease that's come from a virus, coronavirus, right? Which is of which there's a family. There's a whole family of coronaviruses. Some of them participate or are the cause of common flu, common cold, right? So there's a family. It's not that we're unfamiliar with the coronavirus as a family. What happens is that in today's world, especially with the great connectivity, right? Even the regular flu season, as we say, tends to be pandemic, right? Because of the travel and all that. When I was a child, and you hear about China, you believe that is a place just outside the gate to heaven. And if you behave yourself, you might see China. And nobody ever saw China those days. We play with China money. That is, they break up the pieces of China plate and we play with them when we play in shop and call that China money. And if you wanted to make a fool of somebody those days, you say, I have some money for you and I have some China money. Now today is different. Governments are looking for China money. That's different. So, but the word pandemic should not frighten us, because I think every flu season now is pandemic because of the high-speed travel and trade that takes place in the world over the last decades. So that you hear somebody down the road sneezing, coughing, and say, look like I'm getting the flu. And they say, we just come from New York, and it's bad up there, right? So then you hear somebody say, boy, in Miami, and when you hear the story, London, and you realize that there is flu all around because people are traveling and contracting it. So the pan simply means in all regions of the world. It has panned out over the world. And so that is pandemic. Now, so you have pandemics with coronavirus, which we don't speak about normally, but because it's the regular flu. Now, because we have been exposed to these other coronaviruses before, the human has been exposed to them. Even though they mutate slightly from year to year, there is a certain level of immunity still in the community to those that are already known. So you find that, for instance, the flu shot that's given to people, the flu shot cannot cover you for the flu of the actual year, the current year, because there's no vaccine developed for that yet. But people who get severely ill in the flu season usually do so because they have a combination of viruses, the one from this year, one from last year, one from 2 years before, and so forth. But if you get the flu shot, it eliminates the illness from the previous years, then you only have the one for this current year to deal with. So you're less likely to get very ill. That's how it goes. But here comes one that is completely new to the human system, and therefore there's no level of immunity anywhere in the society to it. It is completely new. So like when we had mosquito-borne ones like Zika and chikungunya, we had never been exposed to them before. So a lot of people were getting ill. Right now you don't hear about them anymore because it's leveled off. Maybe 15, 20 years from now, when it has mutated a bit and a whole new generation of people has grown up, you have a next outbreak of Zika and chikungunya. I remember when I was new in Princess Margaret School, I missed school for a couple of days. At least, when I was that age, I used to love school. So every morning, I couldn't make it. The one day I couldn't make it, I show up with a letter from my mother you know, of a letter and saying, you know, that I couldn't make it to school. And then they see me there the next day, say, what you doing? Yes, I feel better. Then the next day I can't go, you know. But it was, dengue was going around at that time. It was like late 67, early 68. And there was one other time, I think, between then and then a few years ago. So these things come from time to time, but then you have slight mutations so that, you know, people have a basic, there's some immunity in the community to it already, but there are some people who have not been exposed or not been exposed to the slight mutation that there might be. But in most cases, the dengue vaccine works to cover the spectrum, full spectrum that's there. So this is what's happening with the coronavirus. It's just this particular coronavirus. It's just a member of a family that we have not had before. The fact that it's pandemic is nothing unusual in these days because these influenza and other common cold viruses and so these days are in a pandemic because people travel so much around the world. Now, the alarm is raised, of course, because of the big figures you hear coming out of China. I think that is the major problem this time, in that here's something that started in China. And you hear, you know, the great numbers of people going down. And it sounds alarming. Now you have the press making a big noise about it. I was just reading something that reading WhatsApp video this morning. I had forgotten it, and somebody reminded me. In 2015, there's Bill Gates talking about the possibility of viral pandemic and saying this is the kind of threat we can expect in the future. And he said all the trillions of dollars that we're spending to prepare for war and all the sophisticated weaponry, and there's hardly likely that we're going to use it. He said we should be preparing armies of scientific people and vaccinations to deal with these pandemics when they come. 2015, he said that. And we have not prepared. And the thing of it is that we are in a world where a scientist now, a different kind, medical scientist is saying, look, this is just the first one, right? Because we are setting ourselves up perfectly for this scenario. You have the factory farm for chickens, the factory farm for pigs, you have the factory farm for cows, and you have the factory farm for fish. I only eat fish, but you don't get me buying tilapia and manga Mary and those things. That is junk fish, right? You wouldn't even know that they feed all these creatures. They feed one with the droppings from the other and so on, right? The chicken droppings feed the tilapia and even the pig droppings go in the fish farm. They have to be measuring constantly the level of nitrate and so on in the fish farm to make sure that they're not, you know, contaminating too much. So in those circumstances, you have a big viral soup where they raise these animals. The chickens are there in a filthy condition. The pigs are there filthy, all stuck together, because this is factory, not farm, and cows. And so there's a nasty environment. And whereas they pump them with tetracycline and other antibiotics to kill the bacteria, they can't kill the viruses that way. So the viruses really go in when we cook them and that sort of thing. Now, what is happening is that you have, like this coronavirus suspected to have jumped from the animal, from lower down in the animal kingdom. You have these viruses that the chicken, the cows, and the pigs, and so forth, and being fed even to the fish. They're just waiting for the opportunity to get into the human system. And so what happens is that you have the big mixing bowl for viruses that come to humans is the pig. For whatever genetic reason, we seem to have some common genetic links with the pig. so that we were able to use pig insulin for years before we developed other insulin. That was pig insulin we were using for the diabetics. The first heart transplant was pig heart, because that's the only heart that the human was not rejected, right? So what I do know we have very much in common, nobody can dispute, is that we and pigs eat anything.
Have mercy.
That is what nobody can do. Human beings and pigs are scavengers, right? So now, as a result, a virus that's in the animal world gets into the pig and it develops a genetic form that not only infects the pig, but when it passes from the pig to us, it is a genetic form that we can pass from one to the other as human beings. And that was the greatest fear when the bird flu was going around. If that bird flu had really got mutated in the pig, then we would be passing it from one to the other, because the bird flu was really only being contracted by contact. That is, she would have contacts with the fowl, chicken material, pieces of feather, blood, whatever on her. And I would get in contact with her and it gets on me. And I think, but it wasn't like in droplets or anything from one to the other. If only it had got in that mixing inside of the pig, then it would have been much, much more dangerous. And that's why there was this great effort to cull, which is another word for kill, the birds and so on that were in the areas where they have a lot of pigs, do a lot of pig farming and so forth. So now, we have what has been predicted, that we will have a monster virus or two, and that's going to be a periodic feature in the planet from now on. And here we have the first one. Nobody's calling it a monster virus as such yet, but it's the first pandemic viral, infection that has caused so much alarm. Now, the alarm, as I said, comes from the media. The US media really drummed it up a lot. And it's all part of the capitalist greed. Just as the factory farming to mass produce the cheap meat, all these other things, just as the effort to promote the milk for all ages, even when it's giving you diarrhea and all that. All that is just for people who are greedy to make millions of dollars. And so you have all the big news corporations and so on. They have correspondents in China and all over the place covering this thing. Oh, there's so many more ill today and this, and they produce some dramatic images, sometimes a little edited and spiced up, for greater impact, because the press is that way, the media is that way. And it increases their ratings when hey, switch to NBC, Fox, and so on, because they're going to have the stories. Oh, how much more in China today? And they show some people dead in the we're going to speak with our correspondent. Oh, yes, over here. So, yes, you see the body is back behind me in the street. And that sends up their ratings. And when it sends up their ratings, they get more advertisement. And more advertisement is more money. And everybody is happy because the well-groomed anchor sitting down there reading that over the television is carrying home $1, $2, $3, $4 million a year just for sitting down there and reading that thing on the television. That's how the US is a crazy place. So it's all part of this whole thing, and they have caused an unnecessary alarm with this thing. In other words, we are not saying anybody should be complacent, but what you should be doing is saying, there's this virus, right? This is the potential it has for spread. This is how we must approach it to minimize the effects, to mitigate. This is what we need to do in various places. But when you start from the alarm, then you have a problem. So you get some figures from China, and how they sound terrible. But when you look at the Scandinavian countries with a good socialized healthcare system, you see Switzerland, 854 cases diagnosed, 4 dead. Denmark, 676 people diagnosed, nobody dead. Norway, 621 people diagnosed, 1 person dead. Netherlands, 614, 5. Belgium, 339, 3 people. Austria, 361, 1 person. Finland, 155, nobody dead. You see? So the USA, of course, now is a different case because, well, England at that time, up to the weekend, had 600 cases, and they had 10 people there. They were the highest in that figure there. So, and when you look at the people who died, first of all, 80% of people who get sick from coronavirus are going to be fine. They're not 80 are going to be perfectly fine.
So they have more hope.
Of the other 20%, you have who have more serious conditions, and out of that, you may have 2 or 1 or 0 point something percent who are vulnerable, who are more susceptible because of their old age or underlying conditions that already reduce their immune response, whether they are HIV patients who are not yet what you call it negative, not negative, what you call undetectable, because you can be an HIV patient and you're using your medication and you're using your vitamins and you're doing resting yourself, you're exercising as you should and so on. You keep healthy. A lot of healthy looking people around here you wouldn't suspect, and they're doing well. Their viral load is undetectable. It means that, well, we don't tell them, but viral load, people who are undetectable can have sex and their partner is all right. But we don't tell them that normally. So but once, because you don't know the moment that they're going to slip up, and it's not, it's not safe. So you have people like that who might not be, their immune system might not be in a good condition. Diabetes is another thing that weakens the immune system, and you may have forgotten to mention it. Sugar is one of the biggest killers of the immune system. And when you drink 1 soda, you'll be surprised. These sodas probably have nearly 1/4 pound of sugar. to say sweet. As a matter of fact, it's not just the sweet drinks, and all these poisonous looking purple and green things the children drinking and so on. It's not not only in those, but the food. People don't realize that they have hooked us on sugar in the food too, so as to sell a lot of sugar. You know how much sugar in KFC? Sweet. Why do you think it tastes so sweet? It's sugar.
The bread.
Well, the bread.
Yeah, there's sugar in it.
Well, when somebody discovered that the brownie bread they were eating since they were growing up, and they went to investigate and realized how much sugar is in it. That's why it tastes so sweet. Salt, lard, sugar, bam. And so we are hooked on these things, and sugar really kills the immune system.
Yes.
Right now, people
Yes.
should be concentrating on not drinking these sugar-sweetened drinks and drink a lot of water. Keep hydrated, drink a lot of water, avoid sugar-sweetened drinks. So that's it. So now you have people who are dying because they have weakened immune systems, whether, as I said, for underlying conditions they had before, or they're just old people and in a debilitated state in the first place. Because if you look at regular flu in the United States, the last flu season, 36 million people were diagnosed out of a population of 350 million. That's 10% of the population was diagnosed. 36 million people had flu. And you know how many of them were hospitalized? 370,000 people were hospitalized, regular flu. And 22,000 people died. Now, if you were to put that figure in China, you could alarm the world, because 36 million people in the US is 1/10 of the population. And what's 1/10 of the population in China? They have 1.5 billion. You understand? So you're talking about what? 1.5 million people will be ill with the flu, right? 370,000, that's about what? 5.5 million people hospitalized with flu. And then it would be about 330,000 people dead. Now, if you hear those figures, you say, oh, the world done. But it's China with endless people. So that is one of the things that was used to raise the alarm. The media dwelling on these figures and making it sound terrible. But what they're not saying is look at the problem in the United States of America, where they had a chance, given their wealth and their scientific capacity and so on, to have been on top of that thing so early and have few cases. But the same capitalist greed is the problem in the United States of America. We here in Antigua have a highly socialized medical healthcare system compared with many places. You can walk into a public clinic here 5 days a week and get medical attention. You can get referral to the hospital. You can get a prescription filled with some major medication right in the pharmacy there without paying a cent. And of course, chronically ill people get their things from medical benefits. And you go up to the hospital and with your medical benefits card, the average test, you pay $20 or something like that. That's nothing, you know? But look at this. The United States of America, it costs $1,300 and something to do the test for the coronavirus. People who cannot save in 5 years would not have a saving of $1,000. They don't have no money. People in the States live without money. They may have a credit card, but they don't have any money. And they work in 2 jobs. They're probably homeless even. Because in 95, when I first told some people, look, people in the United States who get up every morning, go to a job, and go back to a homeless center every night. They say, oh, you mean they don't live? I say, their money can't pay rent and do anything else. So you had a mother with her children in a homeless center for women, and the man in a homeless center for men, because that way they can take better care of their children financially, and so then if they try to rent someplace. You know, so here you have people in the United States having symptoms and they can't go to a doctor. They don't have any money. So they stay out, they're infecting other people. And then you have then in Antigua, people even bluff being sick and they get sick leave and they go on home, they know they're getting something from Social Security. In the United States of America, the hour that you don't go to work is an hour you don't get paid for. Right? So people don't want to stay home. Already they can't eat. They can't pay their rent. They can't pay their bills. How are they going to stay home? How are they going to feed their children? So you take 2 paracetamol every 2 hours, right? Which is toxic, is overdose. And you hide your sniffles and you go to work and so on and spread your virus. Because if you stay home, you're not going to get any money. And the Republican Senate just refused to agree for people to get sick when they stay home. So those are the issues that are really driving the infection in the United States, corporate greed. So we have that situation. Now, so the thing is that, for instance, I said too, the Trinidad, I learned had 34 cases of death from ordinary flu, last flu season. 34. Trinidad has 1 point something million people, just over, right? So if that would, right, that would be 1,500 times 34 people, right, would have died from the flu. But you hear 34 in Trinidad, it's no big deal. I said on the television the other day that dengue is still killing people in the region. Dengue is still around, it's still killing people. And dengue killed 2 sprightly young people working at Leah up there in Antigua. And because we didn't have this media hysteria and so on about it, there was no anti-mosquito panic. There was no anti-mosquito. Nobody was walking, trying to kill mosquitoes. The supermarkets and the pharmacies didn't sell off. They're off. The bacon was still on the shelf. Nobody bought out the show tax. Everything was there. And 2 young people died from dengue that spread by mosquitoes. So you can see that the panic has been produced by the media. It was not produced by just simply simple public response, because in Antigua, there would have been so much panic if you hear 2 young people. I mean, people who were at Leaton, so a lot of them went to the doctor, were frightened, I know. But in general population, CVH was still having problems to get people to get rid of the things in their yard that, you know, were holding water. People wouldn't pull up these plants that they have that hold water. They say, no mosquitoes in them and the rest of it. But now, they're buying off toilet paper. I don't know what's that all about. Must be to clean all the BS that are going on around. But, so the simple thing is that just like any viral infection, a viral outbreak like the flu, you just have to do those things to mitigate the effect of it. We can't live in a bubble. And once these things show up in the world, we all are going to be affected. Some countries have closed down all their borders and the rest of it. And there's a difficult decision that, one was asked to make here. And we've been trying to, those of us who fall in the thing, to make some advice. For instance, if you shut down Antigua, what would happen would be far more than if you have 200 cases of coronavirus, because people might get sick, some get 2 might die, 2 old people, 2 weak people. But if you close down the country, many more might die, because the taxi men stop making money already. No yachts. The hotel will have already, they line up, they have to cut because bookings cancelled, right? And then we're not producing food. So if we're not getting the shipments and we don't have the money to buy what may come, which is going to be more expensive because it's scarce, we're in serious trouble. So you have to have the balance that you do all that you can to mitigate the effect of the coronavirus. And the truth is that, well, the other extreme, the British are saying, look, these things come and they run their course. We're not making any fuss. They're not even stopping people from traveling, right? And this is why at this end, we have to do so much screening, because England will just let them come. That is no problem. We can, if we cut off the English tourists, 40% of the hotel gone down, right? So those who decide not to come on their own, that's bad enough. But so the recommendations have been given, which is, for instance, a set of yachts out there, English Harbor, Falmouth, and so they come in. And now that all these countries, Grenada and St. Vincent, all these places are closing off, I think it's just the BVI, Antigua, and a couple other places still open. A whole set of yachts coming in. So the thing to do is to minimize your ports of entry, because Antigua has 367 ports of entry normally when you count the airport, right? And a few more when you add Barbuda, when you say Antigua and Barbuda, because people can end up on Barbuda and then all they have to do is jump on a little plane and come over to Antigua because they're already in the state, right? There is a problem even with the greatest control that we have all the little islands and so around and all these little ports that people in yachts still arrive and get a chance to mingle with members of the population before they check with immigration and so on. So the Coast Guard now has an extra duty which they don't have all the manpower to deal with in those areas. But at least the suggestion is that you direct all the maritime traffic to one place to report before they get clearance to go anywhere else, right? So the Port Authority and the other authorities would have to implement that you all come to a central place before you go to Jolly Harbor, Falmouth, English Harbor, or wherever. So public health people can screen you there. On one day this week, this is the third day, so it must have been Monday. I was at a meeting and I said, you know, this first thing is minimize the number of ports of entry that you have. But the discussion that day was only concerned with the airport, so they didn't bother. But by the next day, which was yesterday, somebody got a lot of health response was, we have to lock down the port. A lot of people come here, lock down the port. Of course, the other people had to tell him, whoa, whoa, whoa. And that's what he was proposing, I believe, to the Prime Minister. So there was another meeting yesterday when they realized, now, yes, we have to address the seaports now. We dealt with the airports. Now, there's something that's commonly done in all ports now that is in other countries, and which we have recommended and hope Cabinet will agree on by today. You have, when a vessel comes in, whether a plane or a ship, you have what's called the health declaration. On the airplane, there's a general declaration and there's a little part down there for health. And the captain has to present that when he comes in. So you get an idea of if there's anything dramatic on the plane. Routinely, public health inspectors or health officials in Antigua don't review those. The airline agents themselves look and see if they think that they should call health authorities. Now, the decision is, and they've begun from, I think, last week, health officers at the airport. Now, in addition to that, what is being done and what is recommended is that each individual passenger has a form, right? Each individual passenger must have a form to fill out on the plane or on the ship, which public health officers see before they're let into the country. And there's just 4 or 5 points, and they will see what raises a flag. For personnel reasons of shortage of personnel, even other persons may be trained to look for the answers and say, this looks serious. Okay, these here have to hold on for public health to come. Now, people, as I said, even people who are flying suppress symptoms too. The woman who was diagnosed, she must have known that she was ill when she came to Antigua. And she hid the symptoms, right? And she went to a doctor the next day. That means she was already ill when she came and she knew that. We had a measles case a few years ago. The young woman had a sister diagnosed with measles. She wasn't feeling well and she came to Antigua. And then a couple of days after, when the hotel got her to see the hotel doctor or something like that. And that's when we discovered she had measles. Now, on the international health regulations, there's a lot of reporting. So we were able to have contact tracing for people in California and all over the place who would come on the flight with her. And people got vaccinated and the rest of it. So people can do that, suppress the symptoms, and when they have the form to fill out, they can lie. And there's nothing you can do about that. So the problem is not foolproof. The issue is, the response is not foolproof, but you're doing the best you can to mitigate at the ports and so forth. And when you ask people to do the social distancing, is to attempt to prevent, an unnecessary spread in case, there are any people with the infection with it. But the same basic things: avoid close contact with those who may seem ill, avoid exposing others when you are sick, stay home from work or school if you are experiencing symptoms, cover mouth, nose when sneezing or coughing, and not with your hands, because then you go and use your hands after. And in any case, you wash your hands frequently and you avoid touching, as Miss Mannix says, men, the mouth, the eyes, and the nose. And the thing is, people put on gloves, as she was saying. I see people walking around in gloves. That is even more dangerous than if you have your plain hands. When you have your plain hands, you know that you should wash them and what's not. You have on the gloves, and it's a mistake people made. I used to see once in the emergency room, the cleaners, many years ago at the hospital, put on their gloves. Fine. So they're cleaning and they're doing everything. And then you see them come and go to the fridge and so on. So I said, so who are those gloves protecting? You. What about everybody else? You know? And if you don't take them off properly, you contaminate. So if the gloves are not washed, just like hands, they're not clean either. Right? And then if you wear a mask only because you don't want to touch your own face, right? That's a completely different thing from wearing a mask just to prevent droplets, right? Because you can be wearing a mask unnecessarily, and then you're holding it with your dirty hands, holding your face to steady it and all sorts of things. So that's it. So the coronavirus, you can't just say it is a flu, another flu. It spread quite as efficiently as the flu spreads anyway. But there are things about it that are not quite known. And so the effort is to take all the basic measures that would prevent the spread of a viral infection. I mean, we have some experience from preparing for Ebola, that the only thing you could do with Ebola is to stop the chain of infection. You can't treat it, you didn't have a cure, stop the train of infection. And one of the ways of stopping the train of infection was to expose as few healthcare workers to it as possible also, right? So the idea of quarantine and isolation. So if you notice a red flag, a patient says they had sore throat, they're coming from somewhere, they passed through London, or they were in Italy 10 days ago. You say, public health, the medical team have to see that person. And that person right away, you mask up and what's not. And now, if the government quarantine facility gets overwhelmed, then you're allowed to self-quarantine. You can go to your place, the place where you're staying. The hotels understand that they have to have rooms for quarantine. And that would be strictly room service. Disposable things will be put in a tray at the door, and they collect that, put back out the tray. The workers would go protected to collect those disposal. Them only the tray would need sanitizing. Everything else you throw away. And enough linens and so forth, toilet paper, and so would be in the room for them to last, 14 days, as it goes. And of course, if they develop symptoms now, you call the health authorities to collect them immediately. Because if you have to plan that, because if you have in Antigua 20, 25 people to be quarantined and you can only do 15, or something, then you have to have the other people doing their quarantine. If it's a hotel they're going to stay in, and you may have to trust people to self-quarantine, in which case healthcare workers are supposed to visit them at least twice a day to monitor their progress, see if they have symptoms and so on. But of course, what's to stop them from slipping out somewhere in between? But in other words, you would have done still the best you could do in the circumstances to help to mitigate that situation. And once you tell a few people around in the neighborhood that somebody quarantined, they'll keep firing up. You can trust that.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Knight. There's a question here on our YouTube chat. There's someone asking about the anti-inflammatory drugs that they somehow linked to fatalities. Can you speak on that?
Well, I have read that in Italy, they seem to find that and ibuprofen is a common feature. You know, ibuprofen use is a common feature among most of the people, many of the people who have been severely ill and have died in Italy. So they're thinking that it's probably an interaction with the ibuprofen and the coronavirus that is causing it to be that to produce that level of mortality. But that's a scientific speculation. I don't know how well it is proved, but it's an observation that has been made, the connection between the ibuprofen and the coronavirus.
Any questions? Ms. Gardner, there's also a question earlier. Someone wanted you to repeat about the type of lemons that we can use. I think you spoke of that, the local lemons, they might not actually be lemons, but they're the yellow ones that we see in the supermarket.
Yes, when we refer to lemon, we are speaking about that yellow lemon. However, our local lemons, that we call lemons, they are still a citrus fruit. So they will still have some level of vitamin C. So it's quite okay to use them as well.
And for Dr. Knight, I know culturally that there's still a vast number of persons who may have the flu. You spoke about immune system, that there's some persons who may think that they're getting the flu and they will just go to the pharmacy and purchase over-the-counter drugs. Also, too, we know that with the coronavirus that there are thousands of millions of persons who perhaps have it and they're just not tested, we don't know. Is that still one of the recommended practices, that persons can still go to the pharmacy and purchase over-the-counter drugs?
And I know the Ministry of Health has already sent out directives, and the Pharmacy Council, and I think some pharmacies actually have its posters up, notices, and I've seen it, and they have WhatsApp and so on, and you know, from pharmacies saying, if you have these symptoms, don't come, call, and we will advise you. Right? So
Social,
as there.
yeah.
Okay. So are there any other questions? No question? No question? Yes.
Dr. Knight, from your earlier speech, I realized that you're saying that, you know, it may have been over-publicized by the media, but I got it in there, and you're saying we should still obviously be cautious and self-contained, and in case, you know, we think we have the symptoms. But have you recommended, or would you recommend, like you say, for those of us who are the people who would have been self-contained and intentionally, whether it's boredom or whether it's on a deliberate end, would try to infect the population that we've seen from videos online from places like China, where you have people spitting on the elevator buttons knowing that they're infected. Are there any plans, or are there anything in place right now to prosecute, to, as you say, locally deal with people that do that kind of things?
I don't know what the law, in how the law deals with that particular, because I think you can always stretch the law to malicious behavior, right? Malicious endangerment, you know, of others and so on, because it's something. It's one of the fine things that, you know, when people go to court, they have to argue the law is back and forth for the interpretation of the law. Because, for instance, in the case of HIV, it's different, because you have to prove that the person intended to. And then the other thing is, always the person infected, but you know the dangers out there. Why weren't you protected? That is what the other law is going to argue. You know? So somebody says, this person that deliberately puts foot on the handrail, right? And that is one thing. And then somebody said, but all this notification going out to wash your hands and what's not, so that should not have affected you, you know? So it's always a ticklish thing that, you know, to fight out in the courts. But you can under the Litter Act, spitting is littering, you know, actually. If you spit, you know, I mean, you know, you, for instance, you well, not even a cold and you're here and you just spit there on some place like that and so on. That's part of littering. So you can find a way really to deal with that from the legal angle. But the point is to persuade people to practice good hygiene and not to be malicious.
Okay. I'm just going to respond to one of our employees. I believe this is one of our employees who works in the field. His question is, what would be the appropriate protocol for telephone outside plant staff to approach customers and visiting their premises? So I just want to read something from a memo that was sent out on the 13th of March, that customers requiring services from our technicians and other field staff through work orders for new services, in-home inspections, and fault resolutions will be contacted prior to dispatching the customer to their homes to determine if the customer or any member of their household has any of the COVID-related symptoms. And if the customer or any member of the household has traveled to any of the regions within the past 14 days, the work order will be postponed.
That's all.
Sorry? Getting that information from the household.
Well, similar to what the doctor said. I mean, it's not foolproof, but at least we just want our employees to know that these were things that we definitely considered. And we're hoping that the public will cooperate and understand that this affects us all.
Every agency or any authority, any establishment always just has to prove that they're keeping up their end of the bargain, right? That we did the best we could to protect our folks. You know, that way you're able to prosecute the people who do things maliciously. If somebody did not report or made a false claim and then a worker went and got ill, you can prosecute that person because they deliberately falsified so as to endanger somebody else.
And Dr. Knight, I have another question for you. If you can compare and contrast the signs and symptoms of the flu versus the COVID-19.
Well, the only symptoms that seem at this moment more common in the COVID-19 than in the regular flu, the sore throat and the runny nose mainly, I think. Those well, because you can get a high fever with the regular flu anyway. But they say the high fever, the sore throat, and the runny nose are three things that seem pretty common in this viral infection. That may separate it from the regular flu. And this is why they say that once you have any flu symptoms, you treat them as though it could be COVID-19.
So just to clarify with you, you're saying that if you have one of the symptoms for the COVID-19 as well as the flu, is there any symptom that if you have it, it's really different than that of the flu? Because I believe all of us would have had the flu before, but is there a particular symptom that you might be experiencing that should sound an alarm, especially if you know you have not traveled or anything like that and you're experiencing this particular symptom?
Well, as I said, what is being reported as the most common symptoms in this case, the sore throat, the high fever, and the runny nose, which are not symptoms peculiar to this you can get, but then in this particular case, these seem to be the three symptoms most outstanding. So, once you have any of those, you're highly suspected, right? It's a highly suspicious case. But what is being said, once you have flu symptoms of any kind, call, phone, and say what your problem is so you can be assessed, and then you'll be guided whether, and to go to a clinic, or if you call your doctor, so that if you call the pharmacy, they will tell you, no, I think you should call the clinic or the doctor. And the thing is to have persons ready to receive you there. That you don't just show up with these symptoms, the next thing you know is COVID-19 and you've infected other people. So if your symptoms are any of these that are the most outstanding in COVID-19, then you have people there ready to deal with that.
I was asking about the time span in comparison to the flu and COVID-19. It's if you have a flu, like say you have a flu more likely for about a week, you know. But if this feeling persists, you're coughing and whatever, how would you compare it?
No, I mean, if you have the symptoms at all, then you treat it in that way. You try to find out if it may be, especially if you have one of these 3 symptoms which are outstanding with this particular viral infection, that you seek, advice as to how to proceed, because this thing is new. And so in terms of the duration of it and the rest of it, it might not be so clear as yet. And so since also it varies according to people's immune system. I mean, usually now that I am in that category that they say is more susceptible, old people, I have to, but when I was younger, I know that I get flu for me, I feel sleepy, drowsy, like lazy, not doing anything for one day or two, and the next day I'm good. And I had the flu, and that's it, right? And very seldom, a couple of times in the last few years, I have really had, like serious fever or cough and feeling like, staying. But it used to happen to me. I work in the clinic. People come who cough, whatever, and I go home Saturday, don't feel too well. Sunday, I'm a little bit logy, and Monday I go back to work. So I never get sick leave. I write the sick leave for the other people, and then I go home the weekend and come back to work on the Monday. So it depends on their immune response. Some people, some people tell you they haven't had a cold for ages. When I get a cold, it just lasts me 2-3 days. Other people stay home for a week. So it's difficult to tell in terms of the duration. You would have to know something about what the person usually experiences and what the general state of health is if you want to make a determination like that. But the thing is, this is new, and patterns can differ from person to person according to their immune system.
Okay, so if we don't have any more questions.
I have one more question.
You have one more question?
Is it possible, you said that usually for flus, after you've caught it, you would have built a resistance to it, right? So you don't have to worry about the ones that you had already, the one for this present season.
Yeah.
If you were to contract COVID-19 and you recover, is it possible to catch it again, that same COVID-19, that same strain?
At this point, we don't know, but what could happen is that, as I said, these viruses tend to suffer a little mutation with time. So you might find that the vaccine may even have to be updated somewhere down the line because it has mutated slightly. Now, the thing is, because it has already been in the human community, it's not going to be so different, right? As to cause the type of problem that it causes when it's new, because there has been exposure to that species of, coronavirus before, even though it makes a little mutation, because the viruses that cause the common flu from year to year are basically the same ones who make a little mutation sometime from year to year. So you have to catch up with that. So some things give you some things when you get infected with them give you a lifetime immunity. Things like chicken pox, you seldom hear a repeat, although there are some cases, seldom, right? So you have things like that, and others that may need some down the line. But usually you find, like as I said, like you find in the chikungunya and the Zika cases, you don't hear people speaking of it right now because when you see viruses going around, trust me, you think the mosquitoes only bit the people who got sick. Mosquitoes bite nearly everybody and probably infected them too. But some didn't feel sick and felt a little thing and so, but now they are immune to that. 10, 15, 20 years down the line comes up a younger generation that was not around and got immunized with the disease, and you get another outbreak because they can't handle it, right? Now that is different because if it's a new virus now, everybody across the board is going to be exposed to something new again. So there are a lot more people getting sick, you see? So there's a level of immunity in general that remains in the community once it was there before.
Any other questions? No? So I think we have come to the end of this session. We'd like to thank you, Ms. Gardner and Dr. Knight. We'd also like to thank the employees who are here. They would have paused their duties to be here with us, and they would have asked some important questions. I bid on them that they can share this information with their other colleagues and also encourage the other colleagues who did not get an opportunity to tune into us, that the link will be available, that they can view this session later on. So thank you everyone for attending.
And again, panic and alarm would do much more harm than the virus.
Okay. All right. All right.